But I know but I'm just trying to think, but see,
It's gotta be that.
The door.
Yeah.
You did this. Okay, so you taught these guys to.
Yeah.
How did you teach me? This stands a lot.
Oh, she was the super, yeah.
So she's a real good friend. Oh, yes. What did you? So what's good for you?
Mouse, Royal, and Roy West.
You just arrived?
Yes.
I didn't see when I first came.
Snuck in.
I knew as soon as I saw it, because it's right in the vehicle, I knew, but I don't know.
So funny.
Sometimes, and you know, there'll probably be another connection
Yeah.
that you'll
Yeah.
about out.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Jasper Dent. I'm the events coordinator here at McNally Robinson, Saskatoon. I'd like to start by acknowledging that this event is being held on Treaty 6 territory. This is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota, and homeland of the Métis. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of The Obedient Daughter by Amber Hayes. Thank you so much to Amber for being here tonight and for working with us to make this event possible. Okay. We do have a few folks joining us online tonight. I'd like to say hi to them as well. So just be mindful of the web camera up to your right here. It's just focused on a podium. It will not be filming the audience. I'd also like to take this moment to remind you all to silence or turn off your phones. Save yourself the embarrassment of an unexpected call mid-event. If you'd like to buy copies of Amber's book, we've got some up here on the signing table where she'll be after the event. We've also got some on the desk by where you first walked in. You're welcome to get your copy signed before you purchase it. We just ask that you please remember to stop by the cash desk on your way out. Now I'd like to introduce your author for this evening. Amber Hayes is an interior designer and mother of two. Her memoir, The Obedient Daughter, chronicles her resilience and empowerment, encouraging women to overcome past traumas. Amber advocates for racial and ethical harmony through authenticity, inspiring others to find strength they may have never known they possess. Everyone, please give Amber a very warm welcome.
Hey Jasper, can you guys hear me okay?
No.
No?
Okay.
This is the knob right here. Just like, okay. Thank you. So thank you everybody for coming tonight. It is an honor for me to have you all here to share in this with me. It has been an incredible journey to be able to put all of these stories to paper and to be able to create this book. It took 2 years to write it, and I couldn't be more proud to be able to have this as a tool and as an inspiration to anybody who has been through any of the many things that I've been through, whether it be childhood sexual abuse, domestic violence, divorce, borderline and narcissistic personality disorder, you name it. The chapter that I want to read tonight is called My Truth. And this was the hardest chapter for me to write. I sat by myself with my dog Kaiser down beside me, kneeling up at my chair, but I was bawling the entire time that I wrote this, just tears and tears and tears. The hardest chapter for me, because this was the point in my life where I came to a standstill, whether or not I was going to break my family, whether I was going to get a divorce with my husband and break up my entire unity as I knew it, or I was going to come forward with the secret that I had carried for 25 years that continued to just boil and fester inside of me. And so I chose to come forward with it. Adam's mother Sid came into town during the long weekend of July 2021. She watched the kids while Adam and I went out for a date night. Date nights weren't something we regularly did. We didn't have a roster of babysitters, and my parents hadn't been to visit in over a year because of the pandemic. Mom was worried that Dad would get COVID and become very ill because of his previous cancer. They were skeptical of coming while the kids were in school, even though they still managed to visit with Chad and his family. 3 days had passed since I acknowledged my childhood trauma. I was sitting in it. It was like quicksand that kept pulling me down, engulfing my body and snuffing out every breath that I tried to take, but I kept treading. I decided to dress for our date night in something that would take my mind off everything and make me feel flirty. I settled on a leather pencil skirt with a tight crop tee and snakeskin heels. The outfit hugged every inch of my curves and oozed sex in its simplicity. I was hoping it would make Adam take a second look. We headed to a restaurant in the outskirts of Calgary and sat at a table for two in a beautifully designed restaurant. It was quiet and only a few tables were occupied. Our conversation consisted mostly of discussing Adam's work, as it usually did. My work life always seemed to be more predictable and insignificant. I juggled a few projects at a time while shuttling the kids to and from school and activities. Every time I began to talk about what was happening in my world, Adam found a way to interrupt me and lead the conversation back to himself. We nibbled over bites of Brussels sprouts, and in my mind started to wander. I began suffocating in the quicksand. In this moment, I felt invisible. As we continued our dinner, tears welled in my eyes. I didn't know how to tell Adam I was struggling, that I felt weak, that I wanted him to choose me and hold me up from the drowning waters that were pulling me down. I just want to feel chosen, that you want to be with me, I said. We were discussing Adam's next trip. It was in celebration of his 40th birthday, a week-long golf trip with his friends. You spend all this time planning trips with your friends, but you can't even book a date night with me, let alone a trip, I said. Why would I want to spend more time with you when all you do is cry in his soup? You said. This whole time, I thought I was waving a yellow flag, but it turned out to be completely invisible to the male eye. As we drove home, we threw every dagger possible at each other, each one cutting deeper than the last. There were words that I regret and words that hurt so deeply they are still burning ash in the lining of my heart. Adam was calling it quits. If there's no love, then what's the point? Why would I stick around? He asked. I couldn't fathom what he was saying. He wasn't going to fight for me and our family. He was going to cut and run. Aren't we worth fighting for? I asked. Why would I fight for somebody who doesn't want me, who isn't attracted to me? That's not what I meant. I'm going through some things right now in therapy. Don't you want to know what it is? No, I don't. It was like a punch in the gut, so cold and harsh. We went up to our girls' room and peeked in while we were sleeping. It broke my heart to think we were about to upend their lives and the idea of family as they knew it. As tears ran down my face, I looked up at Adam and said, I'm still in this. I don't want to quit. You and our family are worth every ounce of fight I have. He didn't say anything, but he gave me a hug and I went to bed. I cried most of the night and didn't get more than a few minutes of sleep. Adam spent the rest of the evening talking to his mom before he came to bed. As I laid there, I couldn't help but think of the day Damien had said he'd rather sign a separation agreement than go to therapy together. Here I was in the same situation, wanting my husband to fight for me, but instead, they both chose to walk away. It was me. I was the reason. The commonality between both marriages was me. I was the one person who wasn't worth the fight. I started to spiral in my thoughts and then suddenly stopped myself. Amber, stop it. I was working on self-love and positive affirmations through therapy sessions, but sometimes I forgot and regressed to my old ways. You are gorgeous and you are incredibly smart. You are the best mother and your girls adore you. You are a tough-ass bitch and don't you forget it. You are unforgettable. Unforgettable was a word a colleague once used to describe me. He preceded it with compliments about being a woman with such beauty and intelligence, and he genuinely tried to assure me that it wasn't meant to sound creepy, but that if he could describe me in one word, it would be unforgettable. It has stuck with me all these years. The next morning, I awoke with a fresh set of tears rolling down my cheeks, my eyes puffy and red. Hey, I think we should go talk outside, Adam said. He didn't initiate many conversations, but this gave me hope. He sat outside on the front porch, each with a hot cup of coffee. I'm so sorry for last night, I said. I know, I am too. But it doesn't change what was said or how I feel. I got to talking to Sid last night, and she told me I should hear you out about what is going on at therapy. So go ahead. You tell me what's been going on. I didn't know how to say it. It had haunted me for most of my life, and I hadn't told a single soul. It was my deepest, darkest, most shameful secret. I carried it with me all these years. I fumbled as I tried to think of how to say it out loud. I took a deep breath and I held it in. Well, I exhaled and then continued. Chad raped me when I was 12. As soon as the words left my lips, it felt like poison leaving my body. This feeling of a swarm of thousands of bugs flying out of my mouth. They'd swarmed in me for 25 years, and I instantly collapsed. No, Jesus, are you fucking serious? He said. Adam crouched down with his head between his hands and started to tear up. I'm so sorry, he said. I had no idea. I thought it was something to do with your ex when you asked me yesterday if I wanted to know. That's why I said no. Tears continued to fall down my face. I felt so defeated when you said no. It was a lifeline that I was holding out, and I felt like you didn't love me enough to help me or save me, I said. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I'm sorry too. He wrapped his arms around me, and we stayed on the porch in a long embrace. I cried with every ounce of strength that I had, my face nestled into his shoulder, holding on for dear life. Before Sid left that weekend, I pulled her aside and thanked her. It was because of her that Adam was willing to listen. Had it not been for her, we may have ended up divorced, and my secret would still be that, a secret. I shared my trauma with her, and she wrapped me in her arms and gave me one of her legendary hugs. It was no longer my secret to carry alone, and I started to feel a small sense of freedom. And here I thought I would make it through without crying, but no less. So I just want to say that my mission with this entire book is that it is written entirely to help those who have been through something similar. It is written for anybody else that feels like they cannot tell their story. And I want them to be able to embrace my words as their own. I have received endless amounts of support from anybody else that has been through something similar. And as one of my readers has said, that she has used it as a tool, that she has not been able to come forth to her own husband, but she has given him my book and said, this is me. This has happened to me. So if there's anybody else out there that has been through something serious, something similar, I beg of you to reach out to me, to tell me your story, and to use my book as a tool of inspiration to be able to come forth with your own story. Thank you. Want to take any questions? Anybody?
Amber.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for writing this book. I shared with you earlier that when I was a teenager, a very dear friend of mine went through something like this. We didn't know the language. We didn't know this was a possibility. We had no clue the suffering that my friend went through. And had your book been written at that point in time, I know lots of people would have stepped forward and solved what I think is generations of problems. So I applaud you for doing that. And I applaud Sydney for being a wise mother-in-law. Amber, you talked about telling Adam, your husband, about this. What advice would you give to another woman who's going through this and having to share it with her spouse?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think telling anybody is a really difficult decision to make. Adam was the first person that I told, and it took every ounce of strength and courage that I had. And like I described in the book, it was a visceral feeling of thousands of bugs flying out of my mouth. It was the poison that was leaving me that I had kept buried for so long. But it was also the one moment that ignited really my healing. It was the ability to be able to take something that had been inside me and just let it go. And it was no longer my secret to bear. So I would say that if you are trying to tell a spouse give them my book. Not only does it tell you how to be able to come forth with a secret, but it gives you the perfect example of what a partner should say, should do, should act, and how they should respond in a loving and supportive way. Adam was just a gold standard of what support and love looked like, from every front as soon as I spoke my secret to him. And it could have gone many ways. He could have said, nope, that's too much for me, I'm out. Or he could have just walked away. He could have said, it's not enough for me to stay, but he didn't. So I would like to think that there's many other men out there that would do the right thing and that would be supportive. And by being able to show them that how I've been through it when it comes to therapy, when it comes to, hypnosis and doing all the work, that he's a perfect example of what support looks like in that sense as well.
Thank you, Amber, for being one of many warrior women who are fighting the good fight so that other women can be heard and or acknowledge what is going on with them. I so appreciate what you've done. I want to ask you about how you came to the revelation. I mean, I haven't read the book yet. I know that it will be in the book, but something to talk about is, I know that there was a point in time that you felt that through therapy or however that came to be, that you had that revelation that you had to share this.
In terms of writing a book, or
Well, even before that, just the fact, what was the point where you realized you had to tell Adam, you had to acknowledge this to yourself and to others?
Yeah, so the point for me was actually during 2020 when everything was crazy, right? We all had COVID, lockdown, all of the things. When everything, all of the noise silenced out there and life just became quiet, I was sitting with the fact every single morning I would wake up and it was this constant thought that came through my head was that he raped you. That was the first moment in my day, every day for 2 years. And it wasn't until my body started showing symptoms of MS that I realized that it was something that I needed to figure out. So I went through every single test, all the neurological tests, the scans and everything came back negative. And my doctor then said, you must just have depression. So she shifted me over to a therapist that we started diving into eating healthier, getting exercise, getting outside in fresh air. And I'm thinking, this is not going to work. I've got way more baggage than this lady can handle, obviously. And so we dove into that. And then she said, I have long-term depression. And then it wasn't until I had a therapist say to me, I want you to dig deep. And I want to give you the permission to be able to go as deep and as dark as you can to bring up anything that you've been through. And it was through those 5 days, which happened right before that incident in that chapter, I was sitting in my truth. So I was sitting in it all by myself without saying anything. And it just became too loud and too overwhelming. And so it was the choice to save my family. And that's the reason why I spoke up.
Was there a time, Amber, that you did you block this for many years?
Yeah, for 25 years. So I kept it out of my brain, and it was just something that, you convince yourself that it's normal, right? You convince yourself that, well, this must be what brothers and sisters are like. And then when you grow up and you get exposed to friends who have brothers and you see this normalcy that they have, this camaraderie, this friendship, this support, and you're thinking, well, that never happened in my situation. So you bury it some more and you think, well, maybe they're not, the likelihood of brother and sister. And then it isn't until you can't suffer and silence it anymore that you have to deal with it.
Must have been difficult when you had that first time to talk with your family about what was going on, your extended family. Some of, I think, are here tonight, and how did that play out?
There's a chapter in the book called The Intervention. And so that was the biggest moment in coming forth with it. And it's where we all sat close in a circle, you know, my immediate family, and we all acknowledged how, you know, the abuse and the truth really had shaped everybody, how it had affected their life. And everybody took turns being able to speak it. And it was something that every therapist would say, don't do that. It's, you know, the likelihood of being reoccurring trauma or just being, you know, hurt even more is very high. So to have somebody sit there who had sexually abused you and say, yes, I did that, I'm sorry. It was, I wouldn't say it was life-changing by any means, but it definitely, it meant something for sure. To have everybody in my family hear it, it was a lot for them to say, okay, I know you can believe me now because he admitted it. So.
Hi. I see that your father's here and one brother is here. I'm assuming your brother who sexually abused you is not.
No.
And I just wonder how you, even though he's admitted it, how you deal with it, how you cope with that, how you feel that he's chosen to just walk away and not be a part of your life.
I wouldn't say that he's necessarily chosen it. I never gave him a chance to be a part of my life, and I'm okay with that. I think as I've grown and as I've learned about setting boundaries through borderline narcissistic personality disorder and just through all of the therapy, I think healthy boundaries are something that is necessary. So I've never given him a chance to be a part of my life after the last time that I saw him, and I still feel that way, that I almost lost my entire family because of the trauma that he caused. Do I hold grudges and am I, you know, very upset and angry with him? No. I've worked on my healing. I have done everything that I need to do to be able to be a whole person again. Do I wish him well? Maybe. Maybe. I guess I'm trying to be the bigger person in all of this. But yeah, he won't have a place in my family again.
And if Adam has anything to do with it, he definitely won't have a place in your family again.
No.
Just when Adam and Amber did the book launch in Calgary, I just want to let you know Adam did an introduction for Amber in tears.
Mm-hmm.
And Amber did her talk and this, and then did a Q&A. And as a mother, to watch these two do this was absolutely, and I told you both, it's the most surreal feeling to watch the two people you love do this in front of a whole audience of people. And I was so incredibly proud of you.
I owe you a lot. All the gratitude and all the love in the world for you. My favorite mother-in-law.
Thank you, Jasper. Amber, I applaud your family for being here. It takes great strength when you are in the midst of tearing a family apart. But we need to have healthy, strong relationships through generations. I want to ask you, looking forward, you were a 12-year-old, very vulnerable, and you didn't, I don't know where you reached out. I haven't read the book yet. My friends tell me I have to have a weekend at the lake to read it, so I will. But I know parts of the story. Okay, we've got a 12-year-old who's in that circumstance in today's world. What resources should there be around that 12-year-old so she or he
Right.
can reach out easily and readily to get the help they need way before 25 years later?
Yeah. And I think that's such a great question. And I think even before that, I think it's what should parents be doing for their children in this day and age to be able to teach them about boundaries, to teach them about consent, to teach them that no means no, that they are in charge of their bodies. And so one of the things that both Adam and I have talked to our kids about is our favorite five, our five people that they know that they can trust, that they can tell anybody anything to. So whether or not it's, you know, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, a doctor, a therapist, a teacher, any one of those. They can each have 5. They don't have to be the same. And so they know that if it's a topic that they're not comfortable talking to us about, that they can approach anybody. But they also know prior to that, that it's boundaries, that it's consent, that it is, speaking about the parts of our body that are covered in clothing at all times, that those are, no-go zones with anybody. And so I think that's something that we missed for my generation. And I think for generations prior to that, that even, friends of mine have said, I haven't spoken to my kids about that yet. It's like, well, your daughter's 12, it's too late. It's too late. And we should be talking about this at the age of, 4, 3, 4, 5. That's when it needs to start. And so as far as tools go, we need to start at home. So.
Any final questions here?
Well, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will sign some books. If you've brought in books, I can sign those as well. But my wish is very much so that if you have purchased a book or you've read a book, to be able to read it and to pass it along. And so either keep one for yourself and buy an extra one, give it to a neighborhood library, give it to a woman that is suffering from any type of illness that she hasn't figured out yet what it's from. Anybody that's going through depression, anybody that is having just a hard time in life, give it to them and know that they can truly get through anything. And perhaps if it is something they haven't yet acknowledged, that hopefully my book will help them do that.
Right, proceeds go.
So a portion of all proceeds go to local charities. I've donated a number of thousands of dollars so far to Calgary Communities Against Sexual Abuse. So any foundation, as well as SSAIC here in Saskatoon. So it is extremely important to me that they are the ones that benefit from this, and that all women who read it, as well as anybody, survivors of sexual abuse, can find their freedom and find their healing. So.
Thank you so much for coming here tonight, Amber. Thank you everyone for being here.